Good afternoon, this is Ruslan Belov with you. Trump is speaking, and regarding what's being said in the European countries right now about this backroom deal, who, what, where? I'm not going to comment on that at all, because negotiations are happening in Europe without Russia. So what are they even going to agree on? But let's wait for our official reaction, and based on that, we'll comment and move forward. In any case, one thing is clear right now: the fighting continues, and that means we will keep analyzing the frontline situation. Let's open the map. But before that, I sincerely ask you to subscribe to the channel so more people can know the truth. So friends, as I promised you yesterday, let's talk about the current situation, today's video, particularly about the area in front of Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. Though first, I'll say a few words about Sumy Oblast and the border region. The thing is, Sirsky recently started whining, saying the Russian army is advancing, trying to push them out of the border area, trying to penetrate deeper into Sumy Oblast. Well, the question is, what did he expect? The ceasefire is over, and naturally, the army continues executing the assigned objectives. Regarding Kursk Oblast, we're trying to press on Hornal. There were reports floating around that the village was fully liberated, but I treat such statements with caution. I think it's better to wait before making that kind of declaration. According to the latest information I got from the guys, fighting is ongoing in the center of the village. Although, again I should say, everything here is dynamic, and by the time you're watching this video, it's quite possible that the village will indeed already be liberated. In any case, I post all up-to-date information in real time on my Telegram channel. As for Belgorod Oblast, the enemy keeps stubbornly trying to push into Demidovka and Popovka. Honestly, this is some kind of irrational stubbornness. How long have they been trying to advance here? Over a month now. They've already lost around 1,000 soldiers in this area. And this isn't propaganda, these are real numbers. I've posted so many videos in my Telegram showing them approaching the defense line at the border, and then, boom, a strike hits, and everything is turned to dust. Yesterday they made another attempt to break into Popovka, but were hit on approach. The result, a burnt armored vehicle and 8 charred bodies. That's the outcome. As for Sumy, our forces are continuing their advance deeper in. The hottest area, or rather 2 hotspots, are Zhuravka and Belovody. Entering the latter is extremely important for blocking off Yunakivka. And speaking of Yunakivka, that's now the main short-term objective. Fighting is continuing in Loknya. Some say we're already in the center of the village. According to my information, we're still on the outskirts, but we're already pushing into the center and probing the AFU's defense. But let me tell you, it's tough here. Because the AFU is getting a constant stream of reinforcements directly from Yunakivka. So rapid advancement here isn't possible. Now let's move to the situation near Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, as I promised. What's going on here? This is nothing less than a local collapse of the AFU's front. Why local? Because on some parts of the front they're still holding defense, but on others they're just out of strength. In particular, I'm talking about Kotlyarivka, a small village, but the AFU was clinging to it with hands, feet, teeth, nails, with everything they had. But anyone, especially those who have been following the front since the beginning, knew that the most the AFU could do here was delay the advance, not stop it. First, the terrain is disadvantageous, and second, the village is just too small to hold off wave after wave. There's just a few dozen houses here, that's it, and in the end, our forces did exactly what was expected. They moved in with a shock strike group and drove the AFU out of the village. Yes, not all maps reflect this accurately. Of course, the Ukrainian side is now launching a PR counterattack, saying everything's under control, we destroyed everyone, the defense forces are in full control. But they can tell those fairy tales to their kids at bedtime, not to us. In short, the village is ours. Now comes mop-up operations, and then we'll see a direct push into Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. There's just a few fields between us and the border, and that's it. And as you can see from the map, even past the border, all the way to Novopavlivka, there are no real obstacles, at least no settlements that could significantly slow down the advance. As for the southern area, things are a bit more murky. Even Yura Podolyaka said back on Monday that fighting was underway for Orikov, a village right on the border with Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. And what's today? Wednesday. And still, I haven't seen any verified footage confirming that our troops are in the village, though that doesn't necessarily mean our forces aren't there. After all, we took Troitsky, and it leads right into Orakov. So the fighting is ongoing, but it's hard to say whether we control it yet. There's still no hard proof. But either way, one thing is clear. This is all predetermined. The AFU simply can't hold the village. They will definitely be pushed out. And what's next? What's next is actually even worse for them than the situation around Kotlyarivka. Because here, there's just one field. You cross it, and that's it. You're already in Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. Let's move further south with you. Here we have Bohatyr. This is the main stronghold and the key fortified area of the AFU on this section of the front. The fighting for it has already begun, but here I urge you not to expect quick results. This is a very well-prepared village in terms of defense. And although simultaneously we're also moving toward Otradne, and if we reach it, we'll put the AFU garrison on the brink of encirclement. Well, actually, why just on the brink? Still, I'm more than confident that even in such a scenario, they won't withdraw their garrison from Bohatyr. Even though the garrison is significant, we're not talking dozens, but hundreds of soldiers. But you know Zelensky. For him, it's more important to set up another fortress than to save his troops. Because if this were about saving the soldiers, they would have already withdrawn the garrison. But that's not going to happen, so the fighting for Bohatyr is expected to be intense. And finally, the area near Komar. It's complicated here too. First of all, Komar is not a small village, and it's well fortified. Second, the terrain here favors the defenders, meaning the AFU, much more than it does the attackers, us. Nevertheless, there is still progress, and daily progress at that. And the moment when about 1,000 AFU soldiers, who are stationed in Bohatyr, Otradne, and these strongholds here, that moment is inevitably approaching. I also want to add something about the Novopavlivka direction, the direction of the Vostok group, the movement toward Bohatyr and Otradne. Here, Russian units are trying to enter and gain a foothold in the settlements of Alexeyevka and Bohatyr. The fighting is very difficult and bogged down. So far, no significant results. A bit further north, fighting by the center group. Since yesterday, the storming of Kotlyarivka has been underway, which the AFU had largely abandoned. There is also tactical progress west of Bodanivka. Today, assault operations continue in this corridor. Pokrovsk direction, Zvereve, Mirolyubivka, Dakhne. Fighting continues in the strategically important village of Zverev if approaching Pokrovsk from the south. Russian units are moving forward with great difficulty, overcoming ever-increasing AFU resistance. There is also fighting in the northern part of Mirolyubivka, which constitutes an encirclement of the Pokrovsk-Mirnohrad agglomeration from the east. Kiev's sources report a very difficult situation for the AFU here, although it is still under their control for now. Mirnohrad-Toretsk direction, fighting continues for the strongholds north of Sukhaya Balka. For Russian forces to advance here, these strongholds must be taken. Drone operators are performing well in this area and are largely creating the preconditions for forward movement. However, the offensive in the Tarasivka sector has been stalling for several weeks now. It's ongoing, but almost all attacks are ineffective. Kostyantinivka direction, north of Toretsk. Russian forces continue active offensive operations. Since yesterday, the assault on Dakhne has been underway from its northern part, which used to be the village of Horka. Considering that the Russian forces managed to encircle the village from the north the day before, the AFU has no chance of holding out here, especially against the 4th Brigade. Lyman Borova direction, fighting continues for Novoe and Ridkodub. The offensive by Russian forces has not stopped for a single day, except during the Easter truce. Currently, the battle for Novoe is nearing completion, and the Russian army continues to fight for the village of Ridkodub. There is also movement from Makeyevka toward Hrekivka. Securing these settlements will open the way to Andreevka and the Izium area, which will later enable an advance on Borova from the southeast. Now the Siversk direction, fighting for Bilohorivka. Russian forces are gradually pushing out Ukrainian troops, both from Bilohorivka and its surrounding areas. Footage confirming this has appeared. showing Russian forces advancing toward Kryhorivka. Moreover, Russian reconnaissance groups have already entered the village, but they haven't yet secured it. They will not establish control until the western spur of White Mountain is securely under Russian control. But if they do gain full control over those heights, there will be no reason for the AFU to hold Serebryanka. Meanwhile, inside Bilohorivka, there are ruins where AFU soldiers are still holed up. They've been there for almost 3 months, without the ability to return to their own. According to sources, there are around 20 of them, and they are being supplied with food and water by drones. Kupiansk direction. Fighting continues for the bridgehead on the Oskil River. The AFU front here is mostly stabilized, although the initiative remains with the Russian armed forces. The Russian army continues its efforts to completely push Kiev's forces out of Kamenka and also to secure gains in the battles for Mala Shapkovka and Kondrashovka. There are tactical successes everywhere, and Russian forces are also trying to deepen the bridgehead north of Dvorichna. So despite the relative stabilization of the front, the situation for the AFU here remains threatening. Night strike by German drones on Odessa. Mostly the UAVs hit sites of identified military production and logistics. Odessa is the main route for military equipment and supplies, which is why it's constantly under attack. Judging by the weak performance of air defenses, the redeployment of many air defense units to infantry roles hasn't gone unnoticed. As a result, the gradually weakening air defenses no longer impact the effectiveness of strikes. They were producing electronics, assembling various flying devices, and storing all kinds of equipment and gear. The German drones are now flying higher, faster, and dive with a loud sound. The sound has changed. These are new engines, domestically developed. It's no longer a moped, it's a motorcycle. But everyone is saying Ukraine is suffering a severe air defense shortage. And now it's clearly visible. Our source reports that in London, there will be an attempt to delay the negotiation process on the Ukrainian crisis. The Kiev delegation is heading to London for this purpose. Yermak has a clandestine meeting scheduled in London with MI6 handlers ahead of the talks. They'll be advising him on how to undermine, delay, or deflect the talks as gently as possible. Most likely, no grand peace plan will be agreed upon. Although many are hoping for peace following the London meeting, let's say it outright, there will be no peace, not even in May. According to the source, EU globalists and the British could have already greenlit the first phase of a ceasefire if they had agreed to minimal sanctions relief for some Russian banks and reconnected them to SWIFT. But they refused and are deliberately dragging things out. Kyiv has yet to respond to Putin's proposal to discuss directly with Ukraine the non-targeting of civilian infrastructure, said Peskov. According to the Kremlin spokesperson, this initiative should first be discussed considering the experience of the Easter truce. Russia wants to assess Ukraine's willingness to avoid such strikes, but for that, legal barriers to such dialogue must first be cleared. This obviously refers to Ukraine's own ban on negotiating with Vladimir Putin. Russia continues contacts with the US via various channels, Peskov added, but he emphasized that resolving the Ukraine issue cannot be fit into short timeframes. And this directly contradicts Trump's desire to quickly resolve the matter, as well as President Biden's claim that a deal on Ukraine could be reached by the end of the week. Kremlin representative Kirill Dmitriev published an article from a Russian newspaper on his Telegram channel, stating that if today at the negotiations in London the US plan, outlined in Paris by Trump's representatives, is not adopted, and instead the process starts from scratch, then the new peace plan may turn out to be completely unacceptable for Russia. Such an approach, the article says, transforms the peace framework promised by Washington into an unrealistic piece of paper, just a pumpkin. That's all from me for now. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and stay updated on all the events.